up, everyone? Welcome to Unmasked, where things are discovered, uncovered, brought to the light, and made known. I'm your host, Lamar Barrett, coming live to you from PG County, Maryland. If you're interested in finding out about the untold stories behind being a college coach, this is the show for you. Being a former assistant men's college basketball coach for 16 years, there are so many untold stories behind the scenes in life of a college basketball coach. Now, let's unmask them. Today's guest is a longtime assistant, most knowledgeable man I know in the state of North Carolina when it comes to players and gyms. And, comes from a small town, Elizabeth Town, North Carolina. I want you to welcome to the show, Andre Gray. And then I'm going to tell Andre, talk about him a little bit before he comes on and how he got into this business, how he got started, talk about his bio a little bit. You know, Andre, after coaching high school basketball for a couple of years, he went back to his alma mater, graduated from Methodist College in North Carolina, spent some time there, and then he went on to Wingate in North Carolina for 4 seasons, from 03 to 07. Spent a year at Gardner-Webb in North Carolina. Also went to Western Carolina, spent 3 years at Western Carolina. I mean, this man has had a lot of success where he's been. First time I actually met him was probably when he was at UNC Wilmington. We actually, had a chance to coach against him. I think it was his final season at UNC Wilmington. I was at Old Dominion, so we had a chance to know each other there. From there, he spent a year at Winston-Salem, and then he came back. He actually went to University of North Carolina, Charlotte, down at UNC Charlotte, where he had a chance to work with Mark Price. And then so I got a chance to coach against him again because he came into our league when I was at Old Dominion in Conference USA. And then for the last couple of seasons, he's done an excellent job being on Wes Miller's staff at UNC North Carolina, Greensboro, Uncg. So I just want to welcome a good friend of mine to the show. Like I said, very knowledgeable. This is a guy who, very good when he's speaking, very motivational speaker. So I just want to say welcome to the show, Andre.
Thank you, LB. Thank you so much for having me. It sounds like such a really good platform for guys like me, guys who are great storytellers, I guess, but don't like to self-promote. If you sit beside me in the gym, you get to hear all my corny stories, but if I don't know you close and intimately, I don't share much, but it's something I know I need to work on a personal level, just sharing my story. Hopefully I can help make some coaches behind me a little bit better.
I appreciate that because, I think it's, you have a lot of, like I said, knowledge. You have a lot of information to give. And hopefully some people, not just coaches, but, some players can listen to some things that you say today. I'm sure they will. Like I said, I've been around you, so I know some of the stories. And I like to hear them again. So that's why I definitely wanted you on this show. Saying all of that, let's get unmasked, man. So first thing I'm going to say to you is, you've been in a long time, but close to 19 years now, 18, 19 years, 19 years. There's no handbook, to being a college coach. And tell me about your first day, first week, first month on the job after things are done with human resources, or orientation, especially when no one in this business, even before you get started, gives you direction. Because this is the only place, and I'll compare it to this, like a car salesman, and basketball coaches, they aren't told what to do. It's just figure it out. You get your own niche, figure it out. So tell me, what was your first time? What was that about?
This story is probably one of my favorites. My first days as a college coach wasn't typical. My first day on the job, I never stepped foot on campus before I got my first assignment. So I went from being a high school coach to a Division III coach. And they told me I had the job. And by the way, you got to be in Charlotte in the morning to go watch this Prep All-Stars camp. And again, this is my first time ever recruiting. I don't know what the devil I'm doing. I had a friend that lived in Charlotte, so I just drove to Charlotte, stayed with him, and watched this camp for 2 days. And I remember it was 5 courts going on in one gym. And I don't know anybody. I don't know what I'm watching, who I'm watching. I'm just spinning in circles, circling names and writing down notes and just doing what I thought college coach is supposed to be doing. And I'll never forget when I got back on that Monday, I went back to Fayetteville, my first day on the job after signing my contract. I went in the office with my former head coach, who was now the AD. And I shut the door and said, Coach, man, I don't know what the hell just happened. I just spent 2 days in this town. I don't know what I've done. I have no clue. And he gave me a piece of advice that I use kind of still to this day. I moved up a little bit, so it's not as relevant, but it's like, listen here, Coach, when you go to those kind of things, remember this. Every kid you don't like, for whatever reason, you think he runs funny, you think his hair is too long, you think his arm's too short, whatever reason you don't like the kid, scratch him off. If you see a kid that you love, like you're talking about, you're like, oh man, this dude is phenomenal, scratch him off. The guys that's on the left, those are the guys you need to watch, because that's probably the guys you're going to be able to recruit. You're not going to do a good job recruiting guys you don't like for whatever reason. And the guys that they're going good, you ain't getting to come to Methodist. So that was something. And I took that actually pretty much my entire career. The guys you love as players are probably a little bit too good for the schools I've been at. So that was my first days in the job, and I'll never forget him telling me that.
That's interesting. I mean, that's actually a funny story, but hey, it helps you now, and to the day. Like that's something you learned, on the job training, and then you got great advice as well.
Yes, sir.
Leading to that, because you've already talked about it a little bit. You mentioned recruiting. Everybody knows that recruiting is the lifeline to college basketball. You got good players. Probably most of the time you can win. You got bad players, a lot of times you can lose. So what was your best and worst recruiting story?
My favorite, I won't say my best. I had a kid, this was a D2 coach. I won't call the kid by name, but I was at Wingate. Not Wingate, it's Wingate, if you come around there, boy. Well, I needed a point guard. I had a team that was just went to the Final Eight the year before. We had 3 All-Americans coming back, but we lost our point guard for that team, and he was kind of the motor. So I got the call around. There wasn't nobody in my natural basket that kind of fit what I needed. There was nobody in the Carolinas, and that's why I usually recruit. So I started going around to that's when the junior college did all-star games in each state. They stopped doing those now as much. I went to Georgia, and I just fell in love with this kid. I didn't follow my own rule on this one. But I fell in love with this one point guard. He was the runner-up player of the year in that conference. And he reminded me of Rondo. This before Rondo was Rondo. Like he could really make plays. He rebounded the ball. He couldn't shoot worth a lick, but he could do everything. So I started talking to this kid. And for whatever reason, we hit it off. I don't know why he listened to me, but we engaged each other. His grades was a little on the suspect side. So he would listen to D2 schools, even though he really wanted to go Division I. And I remember recruiting him. He wasn't, because we hit it off as people, he would talk to me, but I knew he really wanted to go Division I. And so when I was trying to get him to come visit, finally, put pressure on him to come visit, he told me he wouldn't fly. Like, Coach, I'm scared to fly. And that's how he thought he was going to get out of coming to visit. I was like, no, don't worry about it. I'll come get you. So I drove from Wingate to Albany, Georgia to go get this dude. I don't know how long that drive was. It had to be about 10 hours. And on a D2 budget, so it wasn't like I was able to get a hotel. So I got up in the morning, drove, picked him up, hugged the mom, put him in the car, drove him right back to Wingate. He did his 2 days of a visit, got in the car, drove him back. He committed to me on the drive back, and then came back to Wingate. So that was like one of my favorite stories, because me and that kid still have a great relationship. And there's one thing I've learned with that one was like, I drive whenever I get a chance to recruit, no matter where I'm going. If it's reasonable to drive, I'm gonna drive, because when I'm driving, I'm able to work on some of my relationships. I'm able to stop in towns where some coaches live, or some players may be, or somebody I might have coached, and I can nurture relationships by driving a lot. Where when you fly, you're passing over all these people and all these great towns. So that was the thing I took from that one, was the drive. And then that dude, man, he drove me crazy, like making that drive to make me come get him. That was awesome, man. It was a really, really good kid. Crazy story, I never got to coach him. I wanted to go on the web. He followed me there. The coach didn't have the same vision for him as I did, and he didn't know me that well. The head coach didn't. And ironically, the kid wanted to leave him, getting his academics straight, and went to the NCAA tournament at Morehead State a couple years later. So it worked out for him. It worked out for all, because he's a great young man, really good dude.
And what was one of your worst, your worst?
One of the worst ones probably, it actually wound up ending well. Kind of similar story. I had a kid that I wanted that didn't want me, as you know, in this business, but we had a decent, friendly relationship. And I knew where he wanted to go because the guy who was his advisor told me. So I knew where he wanted to go. And the guy on that staff and I was pretty good friends. And I knew he wasn't high on their list as he was on theirs. So I kept recruiting them anyway. Kind of the same deal. I'll never forget I taught them in the family that doing the in-home visit with me. And my coach at the time, Larry Hunter, he's very anal about everything. He's a guy that when you do an in-home visit, got a 3-hour PowerPoint presentation that he goes through and put all the families to sleep as he's going through everything. Nobody get to talk as he does it. So I've convinced the kid to do an in-home visit, convinced Larry to get in the car for the kid, because the kid went to call Larry back even. We show up at the house, kid don't show up. So me, coach, the mom and the grandma went through coach's whole PowerPoint presentation. So that was terrible. The irony of the story is I wound up getting the kid. And he wound up being 3-time all-conference, and he scored, I think, 1,700 points at Western Carolina. So it wound up working out. But that was the worst feeling, driving that car back with Larry Hunt in the car and that kid not showing up. That wasn't a pleasant ride.
Oh, I'm sure that wasn't. What did you have to give up? Because a lot of people don't understand this, and I know you're a family guy. Most of us in the business, we always talk about that. But like, and this could be other things as well. But like, what did you have to give up achieving your current level of success?
Oh man, like time with my wife, to be honest. Tom, like I married well. Now that's probably the best recruit I've had. She's phenomenal. She's been through all the ups and downs with me. She was there at my very first job, which is Methodism. I got paid $2,000 a year. I convinced her to doing that with me. So she's been a ride or die for me. But the one thing, climbing the ranks and trying to build a name for myself and build a career out of it, I wasn't home much. I spent about 10 years where I wasn't home. Like if it was 365 days in a year, I might was out 200, 250 of them. I wasn't home at all. And then the other 100, even if I was home, I was sometimes preoccupied. I'm home physically, but I'm worried about recruiting or the next day or the next game or the next practice. So that would probably be the thing looking back on, I probably missed the most, is not watching my wife as we gotten older. Now we're both in our mid-40s. I missed pretty much our whole mid to late 20s into her 30s. I missed it. I was there physically, but I didn't see her grow and mature. So
that's a great answer. I mean, because that's what people don't get. They don't see that side of it. Like it's great. Like, oh yeah, especially when you start. It wasn't when we first started out what the money was. You talked about not making as much at Messages, and you started to make more money. But like, and you said it on the head. Like, I tell people this, man. This job is like you working 355 plus days out the year. Like when you're on vacation, you're not even on vacation. You call the recruits. You're worried about setting up, getting kids on campus. And I don't think people understand. Like it was years ago when, like I came. I would come home and my wife was like, "Yo, can you when you come in the house, can you put the phone down?" Like, I used to sit in the driveway on the phone because she was like, "When you come in the house, can you just relax a little bit?" So you miss those times, man. And one thing we didn't have kids, but still you seeing a lot of the time missing, your wife. I mean that's a huge part of your life as well. So I'm gonna ask you this, and this is gonna probably because people don't understand this one as well. Like you get into scouting reports, and so the question is like, what was your best or worst scouting report? Because you can have your best scouting report and have your worst game, like the players just for some reason didn't play well, or you could have your worst scouting report. And you like, damn, they running all this. Some of the stuff I'm missing, and then you end up winning. So. What would you say was your best and worst scouting report?
Wow, that's funny. I give myself personal credit, for winning Kennesaw State the national championship at D2 back in the day. Kennesaw State was my scout. That was my second year at Wingate. I learned valuable lessons then. And one of the lessons I learned is early in the season, if a player is returning, make sure you look at their stats the year before. Because they had a kid, and at that point, I think he was shooting maybe 18% from three. And we was hosting them in our classic. And I remember putting in the scouting report, driver, let him shoot. 18% shooter. It didn't dawn on me that the game before, because we watched it live because it was a classic, he shot 8 threes. And now I'm old, I know. If a coach lets you shoot 8 threes, you can shoot. Like, no matter what your percentages are. I didn't know that. Still young in college coaching. So we gave him the paint, let him shoot. He bangs 5 threes in the first half on us. They don't lose another game. They actually lost the game for us. They win 20 straight games, including the national championship. So I think that would qualify as my worst one. But Kennesaw State thanks me because they won a national championship. I got the kid going. I got him going again. Well, I went back in there. He wound up shooting. I think he shot like 38, 39% the year before. So if I took some time and looked at his stats the year before, I would have knew they could shoot. Plus common sense. Like, I've never shot 8 threes in the game for a reason because I can't shoot. Coaches ain't going to let you shoot that many times. I'll let you fire one up every once in a while, but you ain't getting 8 up and staying in the game. So one of my probably one of my favorites, personal scouts, was actually a loss. Is against Townsend when I was in the Colonial with you guys. My last year there, the year we wanted to get let go, and we was trying all kinds of things, and we wasn't as talented as some of the teams in the league. So we had to try to trick people to keep ourselves in games. And Townsend had to play in our league that year. Big Jerome Benjamin. I don't know if I can say player names on this thing, but they had the best player in the league, 6'8" kid who could really handle the ball and initiate offense for him. And I remember going to coach after we played them the first time. It beat us like a drum, 20, 25 points. And I was like, Coach, like traditional stuff we can't do. Like we can't do traditional. We can't get in the zone because if they know we're in the zone, they're going to dice it up. We can't just come out and play man because they know as a man they're going to dice us up. So I want to try to disguise our defenses. And I got Coach Peterson to agree to let me do it. And I said, I want to make you coach against Coach Scary. I don't want us to have our guys play against their guys. And when I presented to the teams, I told the guys that. I was like, hey, listen, guys, I love you guys to death. Like, I'm coming to all y'all weddings and going to kiss all your babies when you have them. But if I was to go to the park right now, I'm taking them. I ain't taking you dudes. I'm taking them. So this is what we do. So we called it the Jedi mind trick was what we did. So we disguised all our zones to look alike. So we made our 2-3 pointed. And then our 3-2, we kind of slid the forwards where they kind of got behind each other. And we ran our 1-3-1 that we mixed in anyway. And then we ran a little bit triangle and 2 and boxing 1 against them. And we were just rotating defense like the whole game. And I just remember like about midway through the second half, the kids looked at me as like, Jedi mind trick, Coach, Jedi mind trick. Because we was like hanging in the game because it stopped them. Because they didn't know what we was in. They kept looking at the bench, looking for calls. And so, like I said, we wound up losing the game, I think about 4 or 5 points. But I just remember after the game, the kids, they still refer to that thing, the Jedi mind trick, the Jedi mind trick, the Jedi mind trick. So that was like one of my favorite scouts, even though it resulted in the loss.
that's actually great, man. I like that one. I do like a Jedi mind trick. Biggest challenge you have experienced since you've been a college coach?
The biggest challenge, I've been blessed most of the time working with good people. Having to stay civil when you don't think somebody that you're on staff with is a good person, I think is probably the biggest challenge. I got into the business that I love ball. I like people. I love people. I think some people get in the business for the business, and those people tend to bother me. As much as I can, I try to keep myself distance from those guys. But when you get on staff with somebody that you know really don't care about the kid, really don't care about basketball, who's just doing it for the show, and dealing with those guys every day is probably the toughest thing. It makes it hard to do this job when you work with somebody like that.
Like that. I understand. I like that. Now, do you ever find there are things about you that people misunderstand? Like, what are they, like something that someone may misunderstand about you?
I guess I read a ton. Everybody know I'm silly. I know I'm silly. I'm a little goofball, but I love to read. I love to real inquisitive, always have been. Like if I hear something, I want to figure out why. I want to know why. That's one of the things I really like about this current generation. They kind of remind me of me when I was younger. They like to ask questions, and as coaches, sometimes you get mad at them, like, man, stop asking me freaking questions, because coaches back in the day didn't play that stuff. But I was one of those dudes who always wanted to know why myself. So I love to read and pick up information and learn why things happen. I'm not as talkative in real life as I am as a coach. I'm more of a reader and trying to learn knowledge type guy.
All right. Now this is like, we're all educators. You know, whether college coaches believe that or not, you're always educating young men. And so you know, besides basketball, we always saying something like, I'd say, you know, when a parent brings a kid to campus, dropping off their kids 17, 18, 19 years old, and you know, they're trusting you to have their kid for the next 4 or 5 years. And I always, you know, the one thing I say to the parents is like, hey, you've done a great job of rearing your kid, you know, for 17, 18 years. Like, you know, I say rearing, I'm a Southern guy, so I don't, you know, I'm used to, you raise cattle, you don't raise kids. So you rear children. And so I say, listen, you've done a great job of that. Now for the next 4 or 5 years, you know, it's my job to get him from young man to a man, because you're basically teaching this kid like how to handle life. Like it's gonna be things that's gonna come up, like things going on right now. Like, you know, how do they handle a lot of this adversity thing? So what's the one thing you would try to teach, or several things if you want to, what would you try to teach your players besides basketball?
To want to have knowledge to learn and to see life beyond basketball, see life beyond your playing days, to be good men. And I think that's so important. And it's probably one of the reasons why I don't have a job as a head coach. Probably one of the reasons why I probably won't ever get one. The whole CEO thing, that's the catchphrase now, as far as being a head coach, you gotta be a CEO. Like, no, you gotta be a teacher. We're supposed to be teaching this game, we'll be teaching these young men. Like, forget being the CEO, it's not business, they're not commodities, they're people. Like, we gotta try to help these young men grow and become better people. That's what it's about to me. And if you capture their heart and their minds, they're gonna play hard for you, and the basketball stuff gonna come with it, behind it. So that's my take on that. It's like, just try to capture their minds and their hearts and make them dream and make them see stuff beyond the obvious. Like I said, one of my experiences in coaching, I remember getting in front of the team, one of my first days on staff, and the head coach, and I probably shouldn't have, that's probably why we didn't necessarily hit it off, but he was up giving the guys a great, his mind, a motivational speech. But let's go win the conference. It's like, nah, like, shoot, we're gonna play. Let's go win it all. like why settle for the conference? Let's build the mindset to try to win the whole dang on thing. If they're gonna keep scoring, let's try to win them all. So like, just to let kids grow and dream, and that's what, in my eyes, it's supposed to be about. Like, so what if you don't make it? If you shoot for a certain goal, you're still gonna be successful at the end of the day. You're gonna do more than most if you work towards your goals. So, and that's one thing. Like, even with my career, like, I've been doing it 20 years, and some people may say, hey, you ain't been a head coach yet, but I got to coach college basketball for 20 years. Like, I'm winning. I'm winning. So
That's so true. That's what, it's something you've been loving to do since you was a young kid. And, you know, when it's your passion, and you can, like, the suits are nice. If you want to, you can wear shorts and sweats every day if you wanted to. You know, like, who gets to really do that in their job? You know what I'm saying? Which I don't call it a job. I was like, man, I haven't worked a job in, you know, forever. So, you know, I feel good about that. Like, I'm like you. Now, what are your best and worst memories in coaching?
My best, probably that's one of my favorites. I keep on changing words around.
You fine? That's fine. That's fine.
The Wingate years, that team when the game to go to the Final 8, because that was a group that was together for a couple of years. They're real close. During that time, I actually lived on campus. So those guys would be at the house all the time. They actually used my house to park. Probably shouldn't say that because that might be a violation now. So I spent a ton of time with those guys during their time there. So when they was able to accomplish being the first school in that conference history to go to the Final Eight, that probably reigns as my favorite. And we was down maybe 20 at halftime of the game to go to the Final Eight. And they came back, and a couple of the role players made big plays. And one of my all-time favorite kids wound up getting the MVP of that team, of that tournament. And he was a guy, probably our most underrated, underappreciated guy on our roster. We had 3 All-Americans, and that kid got MVP of that tournament. And he was kind of our guy who guarded the other team's best player all the time and was selfless and gave up himself for the team. So that was one of my favorite moments. Probably my least favorite or worst was actually the first time he got fired, the first time he got let go as a staff. This is my first time experiencing that. Didn't understand at the time. That's probably when it hit me that it is a business. I should have recognized it the year before, but I didn't. But when it actually happened, when I was in the gym and the coach called me and told me he was getting let go, that was rough. All I could think about, because I was out recruiting when I got the call, and thinking about having to drive back and tell my wife that's up. It's up.
Yeah, that's what people like. They always, you know what? People like, man, you get in this business, you get hired, you get fired, but you it's like everything else. You don't think it's ever gonna be you. Like that's what you don't think, but it happens. And when it happens for the first time, you're like, wow, did that just happen? Especially when you like, what did we do? Like you thought you were doing the right things, and it's just, hey, it happens. That's that. It's a part of life, I guess. You just got to deal with it and move on. So the thing, this is like, it's kind of like, I'm gonna ask this, and it could be funny, it could be different, it could be sad, however you want to put it. But like, what's the strangest thing a player has done outside of the basketball court?
The strangest thing a player has done outside the basketball court. I don't know, because I had some different birds, man. Good gracious about it. I have one of my first kids I coached. And this is my first year in college coaching too, by the way. So I wasn't quite sure what to make of him. He had this thing for goldfish, and he was like a poor kid. He didn't have much money. So every time he'd get his refund, he would ride his bike from campus to the mall to get a goldfish. And it became known on school that he does this. And I walked into the situation. And I remember the first time I saw him riding across town on his bike with a bag and the goldfish in it. And the dude was like 6'10" with no shirt on. And I just chuckled. That was like one of the weirdest things. I probably still to this day. But every semester when they got the little refunds back, he'd get on his little bike and ride to the mall. And that was probably a 25-minute bike ride. So it wasn't like it was right down the street.
He got me laughing on that one. Now, this is besides, and I'm going to say this, besides Wes Miller, he's one of the young and bright coaches. You know what? No, he's one of the best coaches in the country. I'm going to throw that young title out. You've had a chance to work with him for 2 years, and you know him even before that. So you work with Buzz. You work with Mark Price, who longtime NBA guy who, stuff was new. I think you're going to end up being a head coach one day. That's just my opinion. I've watched you, like I said, for a long time. And you can answer either you thinking as a head coach or you as an assistant. But, like, now if you had a chance to work for anyone in men's college basketball, who would that be and why? And then that could be an AD or a head coach.
Outside the West, of course. I get paid that. I got that in. The guy I like to watch, I don't know him that well. I do have had conversations with him, but I know guys to work for him. Probably Leonard Hamilton before he steps down. I watch him move. His temperament seems a lot like mine. He's a North Carolina guy too. Got the gas house in Gastonia. But I like watching the way he moved. Watch him interact with his teams. I like watching him in timeouts where he gave everybody his team's ownership. he's one. I think it's got to be one of the all-time winningest coaches in the ACC. But he appeared to coach without an ego. I'm super comfortable with what I am good at and what I'm not. And I see the same thing when I watch him and his team's coach. You see his assistants up involved a lot. He's not caught up and worried about, hey, I'm the guy making all the decisions. I watch their huddles sometimes. You see Stan Jones down there with the clipboard a lot of times. And Coach Hamilton's fine with that. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I would imagine if I got me a job, my staff want to have the same kind of freedoms.
I mean, a lot of respect to Helms. I think a lot of people, when they talk about, you know, some of the best college coaches in the country, a lot of times he's left out just because he's not, you know, like, you know, when you come in the room and if you see him at the Final Four, like he has respect. Like everyone respects him, but like it's still like it's not like he's known, you know, like the Coach K's and Roy Williams and it's, you know, Calipari and those guys. But I mean, he's done a great job, which was considered a football school. He's done an excellent job down in Florida State.
He got him playing defense. He got him playing like, and that's the one thing that's weird about it. Like everybody talk about how selfish this generation is. He playing 10, 11 guys and winning 30 games a year. So it's amazing. Like, you know, everybody else having 4 or 5 guys transfer if they don't play for 2 games. And he's been playing 10, 11 guys for as long as I can remember. And he has success with them. He don't lose them much. The transfers, they actually most of the time leave for the NBA. So I admire the way they do it. I like it a lot from afar.
And I'm gonna say this, like I know you've talked about Wingate a lot, but I still come back to this question. It could be same answer, but like your biggest accomplishment you have experienced since you have become a college coach.
Besides becoming a college coach, for 20 years, I've had some really good wins, some really good moments. Again, our time at Wingate, again, the most winningest teams in that school history. My first year at Gardner-Webb, we turned around that program. We had one of the biggest jumps in the country that year. I think we won 9 more games than the year before. Beat Kentucky that year. Lost in the conference semifinals. Had to play the year in the freshman year in the league. During my time at Western Carolina, it's the only time in that school history that they won 20-some games, the most wins in that school history while I was there. Won on the road and won at Louisville, and won at DePaul, and won at Bradley. And so I think we averaged around 20 wins a season at Western Carolina. I don't think that's ever going to be done again up there at Cullowhee. At Wilmington, I always talk about, like, the cool thing was my last class there, because of budget stuff, I signed 3 kids, including the kid that was junior college All-American, without doing official visits. Not one guy did official visit. Had to beat Ole Miss, and I can't remember who else was his final 3, but had a big kid that we beat St. Louis and Texas A&M for, and then had another kid that came from Redlands Junior College, and none of them did official visits. Then, like I said, with Charlotte, again, just everywhere I've been, I've had really good memories of. There's nowhere I've been that, even the places where we didn't finish out our coaching tenures, I could say it was bad, because even the Charlotte experience, even though we didn't get to accomplish it on the wins and loss side, like those players that we coached there, like, God, those guys are like my sons, because we went through so much in such a short period of time. So.
All right, these next few questions might stump you a little bit. So it's a little bit of thinking, but like, what movie or TV show title describes your week? Like your week.
My week? Life.
So Life the movie, huh? Life the movie.
Look, you always figure out, try to get out of this thing, man. Just try to figure out how to win and have some success and have success. Like Roy and Claude, it was the whole while they were trying to figure out how to win. They were trying to figure out how to get out of there, because they did something they was accused of something they didn't do. So that, with some thought, that'd probably be it. You're always you're trying to figure out how to perfect the game that can't be perfected. They perfect the business that can't be perfected. So maybe at the end, I have similar success to get the roll off in the sunset.
I like that. That's a great answer. Life. I like that. What's your favorite word or phrase that you might use, like, Like, you might have taken it from somewhere way back and you still use it. Like, what's your favorite word or phrase?
My favorite, the one I catch myself saying all the time is "I appreciate you," and that's something I noticed. I picked it up from a guy named Chris Ferguson I worked with at Charlotte, and he always end all our conversations with that. And I know when he used to say it, it always made me feel good, you know. So I catch myself doing that, especially when I'm getting off the phone or after I have good conversations. I always tell them I appreciate them because I know a lot of times people don't hear that. Chris
Ferguson, that's the name I haven't heard in a while. He's about a guy from back in the day that was well known. You know, he got a lot of stuff done. I just remember him. That was a good guy.
He's the greatest one of the greatest human beings I've been around this business now. He's number one. Shoot, I can't say he's up there. He's number one. A great man. Great man.
Speaking of that, you kind of mentioned it earlier because you said it earlier in the beginning. It might be something else to trigger you, but like, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Besides the recruiting deals, and I have to admit, I've been guilty of not following this one, but don't lose yourself in this business, because if you're not careful, it will take your soul. And I always try to be mindful of it. And it was a stretch where I probably did, if I'm being totally transparent. But that's probably the best advice I've got. Like, make sure you don't let the business take your soul.
Deep. That's deep. Going to that, where is your happy place?
I'm such a goofball. I try to like to read anyway, and I don't have any hobbies. That's why my wife and I get along. She likes to read herself, and she get into her shows. But it's gonna sound crazy, but I love watching ball, and not like watching to like break it down and examine it. I watch a lot of NBA for the entertainment. I watch a lot of YouTube, kids doing crazy stuff with the ball. That stuff just fascinates me. I guess because I wasn't as good a player, so just watching those guys be able to shoot the ball from over the place and jump out the gym, I love doing that. So I could watch NBA games and I could watch high school highlight tapes, and I don't see that as work. I could purely watch it just as straight fun. When I watch an NBA game, I'm not trying to coach the team. I'm not telling them, hey man, you need to be doing this. So I watch it. Hey, I want to see somebody go for 60. I want to see somebody go crazy and jump from the free throw line. So I get a lot of joy watching NBA games.
You sound like that. Now, what person or an event probably has had the most influence on your life?
No, life, man. Most people don't realize I come from nothing. Not only as a coach, like I come from nothing in life. Like I'm a child of a drug addict. I spent time in foster care. I was pretty much raised my second half of my teens by my grandparents, and that's what got me straight. But one of my best friends, to this day, mother, was my physical science teacher. And I'm the first in my family that I know of to finish high school. And I was always a good student. Schoolwork just kind of came easy to me at the lower levels. And she was the first person to tell me I should go to college. And it never even crossed my mind really to that point. And she kept on me about it. She kept telling me that you got to go to college, you got to go to college. And I just appreciate her so much for putting that in my head and making me think, start my wheels turning that way. And that what made me decide I wanted to try to pursue going to college. And it took her a while to get through to me because it was points in my life where I was like, I ain't going to college. And there's points in my life where I was fine if I did, if I didn't. But just her staying on me. And actually, the day after I graduated high school, she drove me to Fayetteville State, where I went to first. Most people don't know I went to Fayetteville State first. But I was a pretty good football player as well as a basketball player in high school. But she drove me up there the day after graduation and made me go meet with the coach and do all my application stuff, and pretty much told me that's why I was going because her son was going there too. So that was 100% my most influential person.
Wow. Okay. Now I'm gonna ask you this: or if you had to choose 3 adjectives to describe yourself, which would you choose?
I think I'm consistent. I'm able to walk this life for the most part without getting too high or too low. I have moments of each, of course, but for the most part, I'm pretty even keel, and I probably lean more towards the optimistic side. I'm silly. I goof. I can find the light at any moment. It's probably part of my background as well. It's just I'm silly. I think I grind. I think I work. I'm not afraid of work. I'm not scared of work. I enjoy situations that push me. I'm better, I think, in situations where I'm getting pushed. Not saying I don't have self-motivation, but I like to be challenged. I'm one of those dudes. I like to prove that I could do something. So it challenges me when somebody tells me I can.
3 good ones. This is kind of the last thing, and before we close out, but and I like to end this. I like to always end every show with this: is like, knowing what you know now, what would you tell your young self to prepare for as an assistant coach?
It's something that I'm actually working on as we speak. I spent so much time trying to be a good soldier. I didn't spend enough time trying to be a general. When early in my career, I was just trying to build my name, and I was so focused on how I build my name was going to get good players that I didn't take the time to make relationships with people on campus. And the way the game has evolved, and now you know that assistant ADs and SIDs and trainers, they become administrators. And I've had contact with so many future ADs and didn't take time to nurture those relationships on campus because I was so busy trying to go get me a player. So I missed so much time of learning about budgets, learning about scheduling, learning about camps, learning about all this stuff. And I didn't get to experience till later on in my career. I know now when I go to a place, I ask for the budget, even if I'm not responsible for it, because I'm just curious to kind of know what a budget looks like at that level. I look up other schools' budgets when I could get access to the information. So I do scheduling here. I've done scheduling my last a couple of times in my career here lately. So I can understand the dynamics of doing that. I volunteered to do equipment when I was at Wilmington my last year because I wanted to get a feel for doing that. That stuff as a young guy, I kind of try to run from. I was like, man, I'm just going to get some players, just work the guys out and get some players. Learning how to do stuff on campus, I think is probably like, don't be mad because the coach give you an assignment as an administrator. It's actually helping you. So if you get a chance to become a head coach, you can help train the person up under you to do it the way you want it done. So
true. All right, Dre, man. Man, I want to thank you again for being a guest on the show and being unmasked. Is there anything you want to say before we go?
Now this format has been awesome. The questions, like I said, some stuff that I didn't expect some of the questions you asked. Hopefully it comes off as authentic because I felt authentic. I really enjoyed, like you asked questions that a coach want to hear. We kind of all give our little elevator speech. And you didn't allow me to do my elevator speech, which is cool. So I've enjoyed it.
You can say it now if you want to.
I don't want to do it. This was awesome. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this.
All right. I want to thank you viewers for watching another great show. Stay tuned for the next guest. And as we get them unmasked, see you next time and stay safe. All right, Dre, take care.
All right, LB.